Alright, I'm just gonna dive straight into this video because there's no time to waste. I'll be going into stuff that I think is crucial for starting your financial journey. So whether you're just getting started or trying to figure out the next step, I think this video will be really helpful. If you're new here, I'm Dajana and I make YouTube videos about my life as a registered dental hygienist and my journey to paying off $70,000 worth of debt. I just recently paid off $25,000 worth of debt in about 10 months, and I don't feel like an expert just yet because I'm still in the process of paying off debt. I thought I would share just more of my journey and thought process on how I got here today in hopes that, you learn from my accomplishments and failures and apply it to your life with hopefully better results. The first step. I don't know, it might be obvious, maybe not, but I had to set clear goals on what I wanted my life to look like for me to kind of work backwards and figure out the first step to being financially independent or financially secure, if you want me to reference my playlist of my series of my journey to becoming financially secure. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one specific thing like a house. For me personally, it was more of a feeling and how I wanted to feel and live my life and what I imagined my life looking like. So this was maybe around 25 to 27 years old. Honestly, my 20s is like a complete blur. I have no clear markers of how old I was at certain times of when I decided to do things. I just know that I was not happy with how my life was going, and it honestly scared the crap out of me thinking of being 40 and living the way that I was and just depressed and not happy with my life at all. And there's a lot of factors that go into that of my way of thinking, and I really had to do one little step at a time. In the moment, obviously it felt a lot harder, but looking back, everything that I did brought me to where I am today. And I am grateful that I had to experience all those little and major hardships in my life so that I am more mentally prepared to live the rest of my life to the way that I want to. So the first step is not only in terms of thinking of goals on what you want to achieve, but also how you want to feel. Personally, that's my advice. And when you envision yourself waking up at whatever age you can think of, how do you want to feel in the morning? Is it excited? Is it content? Is it calm, peaceful? Everyone is different and they look for different things out of life. And I think when I was younger, in my early 20s, in the way that I was pursuing career goals, I was under this illusion of your job had to be exciting and worth talking about. And that was the only way that life could be fulfilling, if that makes any sense. I definitely think I was under the spell of this whole dream job ideology that goes around, and I'm happy to say I don't think like that anymore. I don't know about you, but for me, I personally don't want to be dreaming of a job. I want to be dreaming of doing things and having a life. And figuring that out was kind of like the first eye opener. And figuring that out was kind of like the first step towards me completely changing my mindset and trying to fix my mental health and do all these things. There's nothing wrong with having a dream job and using that as a goal to work towards. That works for some, but I think you really need to look inward and see what kind of person you are. I thought I wanted to be this go-getter, busybody, always doing something, when really I just wanted no more chaos. I wanted stability, calmness, and repetitiveness in a way. I just wanted a routine and stuff that wouldn't disrupt my day, and that took me a really long time to figure out that that was what I needed, and it was okay that I didn't want to have this rock star life and running around like crazy, not having a schedule and being able to do whatever I want when really you aren't able to do whatever you want because your life is dictated around your work and everyone else's needs and expectations. I could honestly do a whole other video just specifically on the first step of trying to change your mindset so that you're becoming more financially independent or working towards those goals. And maybe I will, because it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. And I think just acknowledging what your strengths and weaknesses are in terms of making money and your ability in that can lift a huge weight off your shoulders and just let the abundance of money fall into your life, because you'll be working smarter, not harder. So think big, work your way back and figure out the steps to getting there. For example, for me, I wanted a life of stability, like I said, and then I was like, okay, how do I envision my life? Well, I wake up and I'm living in a house that's not too big. I don't want to be a billionaire. I don't want to have this pressure of upkeeping a house and living with the Joneses. I just want security. I know this is going to sound weird, but one of my biggest motivators in terms of wanting to change my financial situation was I wanted to be able to loan out money to family and friends, whoever had the courage to come and ask me for it, and not think twice about my bank account and worrying about wanting to help them but also not being able to afford it. Obviously there's like a limit to what I would hand out. All the times that I had to ask for help from my parents, I want to be able to return that to my nieces and nephews in the future if they're ever in a situation like that, my sisters, close friends, parents. Like, I want to be able to help people to the best of my ability. And so then I was like, okay, well, what kind of job can get me there that also lets me have weekends off and don't have to work evenings and it's not totally customer service based? And that's how I came to hygiene. It's a lot more steps in there, and then eventually it was like, okay, so outside of wanting to be able to support or help people out, how do I get that house, that rancher style house that I've been dreaming about on my own? I always planned these goals based off of only being able to support myself. At the end of the day, it's me, myself, and I have to live with myself wherever I go. I take myself with me. And that's my journey to being financially secure, is being able to take care of myself with no outside help. And then once I thought of those goals, I was like, what are my barriers? Well, I don't really have that much of an education. Can I figure something out without having to go back to school, or is school an option? Do I have debt? What are my money struggles? Like, all these little things you really have to just kind of break yourself down on one side of like the paper, really get into the details of how you think you're going to get there. And then you can also make a side where you just create your ideal life, completely let it go wild, crazy, and kind of compare and see if there's any similarities or anything that can really bring focus to what you actually want, so that you have a little bit of being realistic and some of your dream goals. The next step is assessing your financial situation. Take stock of your income, your assets, your debts, and understanding where you stand financially will help you kind of help the first step of creating goals and figuring out what direction you need to go in. And when you assess your financial situation, you want to also just make note of what you've done well and what you've done bad with, and figure out how to fix the bad and play up the good. Keep in mind that these steps take a really long time. It's not something that you can do in an afternoon and figure out what you want. Yes, you can write out all the steps, but things change, and sometimes doing it all at once can be super overwhelming. Do it at your own pace. I had a age deadline of like what I wanted to accomplish at certain things, and usually it's pretty motivating and I accomplished most of my goals. I do let myself have some wiggle room. For example, I said for some reason I wanted to be done school and be working full-time by the time I was 30. Well, it was closer to 31. So it was like some wiggle room. And I noticed that whenever I have these kind of hard deadlines for myself, it does usually take a little bit longer than expected. And I'm okay with that. I don't let it deter me from my goals at all. But I would say the first step is gonna definitely take the longest, because it's trying to rewrite your ideas and thoughts and change everything that you have known up until this point about finances, you wouldn't be here if the way that you were doing things before was working for you, right? So you're looking for something to change, new ideas, give you that motivation. Okay, my legs are going numb. Ooh. So obviously, once you have figured out your goals and you've assessed your current financial situation and you want to figure out the next steps towards that, you're gonna have to create a budget, and that budget is gonna change multiple times. You're gonna try and have to figure out what works for you. As I've mentioned in previous videos, if you've watched them, I talk a lot about you need a budget, and I've been using it on and off for quite a while, but just more consistently in the past 10 months, which is exactly the amount of time it's taken me to pay off that $25,000 of debt so far. And so I really think figuring out what works for you and trying not to compare yourself as to why something worked better for someone else and why doesn't it work for you, blah, blah, blah. It's a trial and error. And the biggest thing you'll learn from this whole journey is being patient. So you gotta develop those habits of tracking all your spending and trying not to be impulsive. That was my biggest thing, because I was trying to fill the areas of my life that I wasn't happy with stuff. And obviously that doesn't work out very well for your bank account. So yeah, track your transactions, figure out where you're spending too much, be realistic. Nothing will set you up for failure more than putting in unrealistic numbers in your budget. I think it's better to say you're gonna overspend in certain categories, and then once that month is finally over, or whatever timeline you choose, you'll feel better about not having gone over, and it just keeps you motivated to continue sticking to whatever budget style you have created. So the next step, which is building an emergency fund and then paying off your debt, this is where I kind of flip-flop a lot personally, I'll be honest. I realized that I needed some sort of emergency fund buffer, because if you don't know, I have ADHD. I talk about it in almost every single video because it's such a big reason as to why I did so poorly with money before, and it's because I just was too impulsive and couldn't think of the bigger picture. And so once I realized that an emergency fund was really helpful in terms of helping me stop overspending, and if I did, I had something to fall back on without having to resort to credit cards. So I spent probably the first little bit of being a brand new dental hygienist kind of on that cycle where I make the money, save some money, but spend more than what I was making or what I was saving, and then fall back on credit cards and not being able to properly budget the amount I needed to pay off for my debt at the time. So it was just like this weird cycle where I'd pay some off, end up in more debt kind of thing. So having even the tiniest bit of an emergency fund really helped me break that cycle, because when a true emergency came up, I was able to use my emergency fund to pay that off without having to resort to using my credit card to pay off or pay for my usual regular stuff like groceries and gas. I like to say to have roughly around 3 to 6 months worth of emergency fund, so it covers your expenses. And some people may need to just solely focus on that and then pay the minimum on their until they have accumulated all that money for the emergency fund. I did the saving up for the emergency fund while also trying to pay off debt at the same time, and that worked out for me. And it might not necessarily work out for you, but this is something that you kind of have to figure out on your own and what works best for you and your lifestyle. I currently am now saving up for a down payment on a condo while also trying to save up for my emergency fund at the same time. If there is something that, knock on wood, stops me from being able to get regular paychecks, I hurt myself, something like that, I will obviously dip into my down payment category on my you need a budget. But then on the flip side, when I am ready to start looking for a place more seriously and put that down deposit on a place, I will not be touching my emergency fund. If I don't have enough money, I will just delay buying the place and try and work more to accumulate that, because I don't want to end up with a mortgage and then not being able to pay my bills because I've used up every last penny of my emergency fund. So paying off debt, the best way to go about it is organize it from highest interest to lowest interest. And then what's more important, also figure out a way to get the lowest interest rates, whether it's calling the bank, the credit card company that you're with, wherever your debt is at, and trying to see if you can get the lowest rate. Doing balance transfers to credit cards with a lower percent is a really good option, and something that I didn't realize until pretty late into paying off my debt that I wish I had done sooner. Look for a credit card that offers a 0% balance or 0% interest on a balance transfer. You do still sometimes have to pay a fee, but that fee, which is usually a percentage of the amount that you're transferring over, is a way better deal than paying the monthly interest on your current credit card. I like to take bits and pieces from everyone's debt payoff method or payoff debt method. Dave Ramsey has a good one, which is the snowball method. And that's once you've paid off one credit card or one amount of debt, the amount of money that you're paying towards that credit card, you take it and you roll it over to the next one that you want to pay off, and then you combine those two, and it's like the snowball method, right? So then once that one's paid off, you take the two amounts that you're paying towards that second credit card or debt, and then you apply it to the third one, and then the fourth one, blah, 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 blah. I know some people like to pay off debt in terms of the amount. I like doing it based off the interest so that I pay less money. Some people need to do it from the lowest amount to the highest or whatever they feel, so that they feel more accomplished or they feel closer to their goal when they finally pay off one part of their debt. It's like a good motivation to keep going, and if that works for you, go for it. I really liked doing what I did, which was arranging the debt based off of interest, trying to figure out how to lower the interest, and then using the snowball method where I applied the payment that I was making to the debt or the credit card or whatever, and then snowball method to the next one. These next steps, I personally have kind of dabbled into it, not fully because I'm not quite there yet. I know I said I would do the snowball method to pay off my debt, and I did that for the consumer debt. My student loan is currently at 0% interest, so it doesn't benefit me to put all this extra money that I could be using towards investing and make money off of it. I still pay the minimum monthly on my student loans, and once I have gotten my condo moved out, I will continue to use that money that I would put towards my student loan, all that extra money that I would put towards my student loan, and invest it. And so if anything were to change, they change the rules with wanting to add interest back onto student loans, I will have hopefully accrued enough money through my investments to just do a lump sum payment and then pay it off. I want to use the money to the best of its ability, and I feel like just personally for the sake of paying off my student loan debt right away just for it to say zero is like more of that instant gratification part in my head versus thinking about the bigger picture and long-term picture. My next step obviously is investing, so that's purchasing a condo for myself. Obviously I want to move out. It's like way more in depth as to why I want to buy a place, but one aspect of it is investing and building equity and all this stuff. I also plan to fully max out my RRSP. That's like Canada's version of the 401k, I think. So it's a retirement savings plan. I plan to max that out, plan to max out my TFSA, my tax-free savings account, so that it can accumulate interest over time, and then I can comfortably retire at any point. The podcast that I listen to, Money Feels, they have a really good episode where they discuss the different types of retirement that you can kind of get into. I highly recommend you listen to that. It'll help you figure out how you want your retirement to look like. And they do mention that there is a age limit timeline as to when you want to be done filling out or maxing out your retirement accounts and tax-free savings account by, which was 45. So I have that goal is to max out as much as I possibly can sooner than 45, but yeah, by 45, which gives me a good, I don't even know how old I am, 12 more years of doing that. So this is all just to grow your wealth over time. So that would be the next step after paying off all your debt, is figuring out how to make your money work for you. Those are pretty much the steps that I am following. Of course, things are always changing, so you kind of have to always educate yourself on what's going on. Can't bury your head in the sand, unfortunately, and I know it feels very hard to look inward and look at the tough stuff. There are still some days where it's hard for me to input all my transactions because I know I kind of maybe went a little bit more crazy on one area of my life, and I needed to readjust my budget, and so I sometimes avoid it. Thankfully not for too long. To this day I still struggle with looking at my budget and keeping up with the knowledge of finances. Knowledge is power, and when you know what you need to know, it makes everything else a lot easier, and there's less surprises, obviously. Then you're always going to need to just monitor and reassess your finances. Goals can change. Maybe one day I'll wake up and what got me to this point, my goals and feelings might change. I might want something completely different. I don't know. I'm only 32 years old. I am quite young. I still have quite a lot to live. And I might change my mind. So as long as I'm aware of that when I want to change it, then I can pivot my financial goals. And also, you gotta celebrate the little victories along the way. It's hard for me, I will admit. When I paid off that $25,000 or so, I was just like, okay, it's another day. But I am trying to be more in the moment and not so much thinking about, okay, well, what's the next thing? Just gotta learn how to enjoy life, enjoy the process, and always keep in mind that almost everyone has some sort of debt, one way or the other. It's pretty rare, I feel like, for someone to not have debt, and that debt isn't necessarily a bad word. It's just a word at the end of the day, and don't let it have a hold on your life and have it dictate exactly how you are gonna live your life. So yeah, there you have it. That is all of my steps that I have started and will continue to do in the future in terms of financial journey to being financially secure. Starting your financial journey doesn't have to be scary at all. Knowledge is power, like I said. When you know what to expect, it takes away all of the surprise and helps you plan for any future roadblocks. You just gotta stay committed to your bigger goal and find what helps motivate you to keep doing that. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!